Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice 𝐁𝐢𝐠𝐬, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. This is the live 10 biggest mistakes in your training preventing your gains. If you're just joining us, this is the Fierce Women community where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. So if you're just joining me, this group specializes in helping women above 40 to be able to lose fat, particularly fat, belly fat. Belly fat's a little bit different of a beast, but a lot of women struggle with belly fat. And the other focus is building fierce, strong muscles. Okay. So a lot of women this age and above have trouble really building a very toned body. And they tell me they like try everything, but just the muscle is not building, right? So this is really the topic of today's live. And I will say one thing before I continue, okay? So one of the things is we're going to focus on muscle building on this live. However, if your body has high amounts of fat, you will not see your muscles, okay? So if you have high amounts of fat on your body, you are not going to see your muscles. So losing fat, losing body fat is also really important to be able to see your muscles, okay? But we are going to focus more on muscle building, muscle specific reasons why you're not seeing the gains that you want. Okay. So first of all, we're going to start first with not understanding how to build a foundation of strength training. Okay. So the first reason we're going to go through is not really understanding what it takes to build strength muscles. Okay. So we're going to talk about a few things. Some of it is a little bit scientific, but not like crazy, like my hormone lives and stuff like that. Okay. So the first category is you might not really understand how to build strength training in your program. Okay. So the first thing you have to always consider, and you might have heard of this before, is progressive overload. Okay. So progressive overload is that you are able and know how to increase your weights, reps, and sets to stimulate growth, right? That's a simple one, but we're going to get into some other very technical things later on. But a lot of people actually don't know how to progress themselves, okay? So we'll come back to progressive overload in a bit, okay? The second thing that is part of this is compound movements. So a lot of women, they actually don't train compound movements as much as they should. So what do I mean by that? So big movements like deadlifts, squats, bench presses, like big movements, there are not everyone. There are ladies who kind of like might go to the gym and just do some machines. Not usually my clients. My clients are usually all pretty big movements, free weights. Okay. But I'm talking to a population of like, 17,000 people in here. So a lot of women will go to the gym, they do machines, they don't really prioritize like big compound lifts, okay? Big compound lifts like as well, like not that you have to do Olympic lifting, but that's a big compound lift when you see me do big Olympic lifts, okay? So being willing to do big compound movements, squats, just pull-ups, okay? Pull-ups are very important. The third thing is they do not do specific periodization. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. Specific periodization is knowing how to phase your workout programs. Knowing how to phase your workout programs means that you understand there are different phases of your training. So there's different ways to look at this. I'm going to talk about two different ways to look at this. There's a initial neural adaptation phase. For anything new you start, any new program, your first phasing is a neural adaptation phase where your body is actually getting used to the movement, to the neurotransmitters and the signals, okay? And it's only when you can pass through that initial adaptation phase, which is between 8 to 12 weeks, can you start going into more maybe potentially hypertrophy training where you really can build more muscle in place. I'm going to describe this process a little bit later in my live, okay? But you need to go through adaptation first. You don't go into hypertrophy building right away unless you're a very experienced lifter. If some of you here are very experienced, that's different. But for most people, you're not, and you need to go through at least 8 to 12 weeks of a new program. Then you're starting to see more possibility of growth as you continue from there. So what does that mean? For some of you, and even my own clients, I talk about this a lot. Your initial few months is just getting your body used to it. And then your real growth comes from continually doing it and knowing how to progress that workout from there, which is phase 2. Okay. Now, the periodization, I'm going to describe the third phase, which relates to what I'm going to talk about, another type of periodization. Okay. So when you periodize, the way you lift may change in that periodization. So when you lift, for example, you may have periods of hypertrophy training, which will be maybe slightly higher volume reps. So 8, 12, 15, 20 reps, okay? Maybe more like 10 to 20. But sometimes you need strength training, which is between 4 to 6, sometimes 8 reps, okay? And sometimes you need endurance training, which can be 15 plus to 20, sometimes 30 reps, okay? So what I'm trying to explain here is that there's actually different ways you need to train. And depending on which phase you are in, you might need to actually switch it up. So here's a common problem for a lot of people, okay? Either they stick to the program and do the same thing and they don't really change it up as they need to. Or there's some people who are more like bodybuilders who do the same program over and over again. And they lift the same way with the same reps, the same kind of format. And the format sometimes needs to change. So for example, period 1 is adaptation, I said. Period 2 is hypertrophy training, which is building more size in your muscle. Sometimes in period 3, we call it like conditioning or shredding phase, is when you're maybe doing even higher reps than before to shred out to be able to see the muscle. So there is different phasings that you actually need to put your body through if you really, really, really want to really see really good muscle definition, okay? So why I bring this up is because actually a lot of people don't actually know how to periodize. Periodization is actually a very specific, obviously you go to school to learn this for fitness training and stuff like that. Most people just grab a program and they follow it, or they use a program that their trainer gave them a long time ago or in the gym and they use that. Or they don't even have a program and they just do random programs all over the place. Okay. So to make it more clear for all of you, in order to really see really amazing muscle growth, you need very specific periodization of how the phasings need to look. Okay. But if you are in a program with a coach or trainer, or in a lot of my clients' case, I already worked that in. Like I already know the first few months, they're just getting used to like my Bulgarian split squats or some crazy combo I gave them. I know that. And that's why my own clients, if you guys listen carefully, there is transformation program and there's muscle accelerator program. You don't usually jump straight to muscle accelerator program because you haven't actually even gotten used to some of my workouts. Once you've gotten used to my workouts, then you can really focus on a lot more specific, a little bit more difficult kind of changes in the program. And the changes, again, can change based on adaptation, hypertrophy, shredding, conditioning, or you can look at it from another perspective, which is switching between hypertrophy training, which are, like 8, 12, 15 reps, strength training, which is between 4, 6, 8 reps. Again, it depends on the person, and endurance training, which could be like 15, 20, maybe even 30 reps. When I was training with my bodybuilding coach, one of the online ones, I was doing up to 30 reps for some of the moves. Okay. So, but you wouldn't do that all the time because you wouldn't be always needing to do that high amounts of reps. Okay. So who here has heard of periodization before or it's new? If it's new, I like you to put periodization new, okay? So periodization new, put it below. We are still on the, first mistake, which is, remember, I'll go back to it. First mistake is not understanding how to build a foundation of strength training. So I said, potentially not having progressive overload, not doing compound movements enough, not having specific periodization that you need. And the last thing is not having enough volume training, okay? So you potentially may not have enough volume training, and this is the definition of volume training. It is the amount of sets times reps times weight lifted, okay? So it's the amount of total volume of that lifting for that muscle group, okay? Volume training is very essential for bodybuilders and for really building the size, the shape of the muscles, okay? So your sets times reps times the weight lifted, you need to have a very sufficient amount of volume to be able to make that muscle grow. A common mistake I see for a lot of women is they actually don't lift enough. So an example is, what if this lady lifts this move? And it depends on the move. I'm just giving you an example. Of course, some moves you need to be really, really careful. But like, let's just say you're lifting at, I'm actually going to use the Bulgarian split squats because I love the Bulgarian split squats. So let's just say you're using 20 pounds and you do it for 3 sets, right? At 10 times. Okay. You guys do the math on that. It's like, okay, times, okay, what's that? Like, what's that volume? Versus someone who's using 40 pounds per arm in their hand, doing 20 reps for 4 sets. Okay, do the math on that. That volume is radically different now. Okay, so volume is often not enough for a lot of women, and it goes back to what I'll say later. Could be the amount of weight, could be the amount of reps you're doing, the amount of sets you're doing, not quite enough volume training. Okay, so what is optimal volumes? So optimal volume for actually women over 40, and that's why I like to program a certain way, is actually 10 to 20 reps. So you need to go on a higher range than what most people think. I know there's a lot of women who actually only lift, 8 to 12. And actually, it's much better if you are trained. You sometimes have to work up to it. I know it's not all at once. The higher rep volume is potentially better for menopausal women. And there's some science research regarding this, but it's actually better. So you need to lift a little bit more, more frequency, more optimal volume. Okay. So how many of you on here, when you think about it, if you're like, okay, thinking about your own workout, everybody do a moment, think about your workout. Ask yourself, do you do enough volume training? If you don't, I like you to put volume training below, okay? Remember, volume training is sets times rep time weight lifted. You can do like 5 sets at 5 pounds, but that volume is not quite a lot, right? So if you don't think you're doing enough volume, I like you to put volume below, okay? The other thing is volume training is referencing the amount of lifting you do for that one body part. Now, there are some tricky things in an app, okay? Like even the app that I use with my clients, they can say, wow, in this workout, you lifted 2,000 blah, blah, blah pounds, which they calculate the total amount of weight you lifted in the session. That's not volume training in the sense I'm talking about. I'm talking about volume training for your specific muscle group, for specifically glutes, for specifically chest, for specifically shoulders. The amount of volume training is important and so underlooked by so many women, okay? So if you're like, I need to have more volume training, put that below. We're going to go into number 2, okay? Number 2 is improper hormonal considerations. So as a menopausal woman, everything you do needs to be considering hormones, okay? Now, as you are in menopause, or even perimenopause, your estrogen hormones will be dropping off slowly and faster and faster and faster, right? So if your estrogen is dropping off, you really, really need to consider, how is the way I work out influencing hormones? Okay. You need to consider how the way you work out influences your hormones. Okay. So we're going to talk about a few things. When your estrogen drops off, you need to make sure that you are really optimizing growth hormone and insulin growth factors. Why? Because you lost estrogen. Estrogen is a hormone that helps you keep muscle. Okay. And as women, we don't actually have a lot of testosterone. We have a little bit, but testosterone is not really usable for us in mostly, okay? That goes through a process called aromatization within our body. So because it cannot be fully used, we don't depend on testosterone that much. We depend on growth hormone and insulin growth factor. So everything you do, you need to consider how you optimize insulin growth factor, growth hormone, and IGF-1, okay? So we're going to talk about this, and this connects to something I said a long time ago in a few of my other lives, is the type of and the way you need to train, okay? So the first thing is you need to consider putting strength training in, HIIT training, rest and recovery, mobility work, as well as low intensity, steady state cardio. I'm going to go through all of this, okay, with you. So the first thing is strength training, resistance training, as all of you know, is super important for boosting growth hormone and then IGF-1 hormone. You need to lift weights and lift some heavy beep to get your body into an anabolic state, okay? So strength training, we all know that. That's not surprising, but that's because you really want to create the boost of those hormones, correct? So you need strength training. Secondly, you need HIIT training. Now, HIIT training is very important for your DHEA levels, okay? Your DHEA levels is a precursor to growth hormone, okay? It will boost your DHEA levels, and it actually helps you with losing fat faster, okay? So during a HIIT training session, it goes through some specific processes where the short burst of energy really stimulates what's called fat oxidation, okay? So the HIIT training is actually extremely important for the mitochondrial boost and like creating a very intense hormonal situation where it has to use fat, it has to like create all these signals to like respond to a high intensity interval training, right? Now, high intensity interval training has a lot of benefits, and it is actually talked about a lot as one of the most efficient ways to drop fat. But HIIT training at too intense levels or too long levels will obviously spike cortisol. So we need to consider how long we need to do HIIT and where does it go? How does it fit into your workout to produce the best results? So this is why I always talk about the way you work out, it matters. So you do need strength training, you need HIIT training, but you don't need so much of it that it's going to spike your cortisol, but it should be in there somewhere in your workout routine because of the benefits of fat oxidation, okay? And it boosts, obviously, the short burst of energy boosts your anabolic hormones the most, which means the way you build muscle. Anabolic means the muscle building hormones, okay? You need your rest, recovery, and mobility work, okay? So the mobility work and the yoga and all that, I will talk a little bit more later as well, but you need this for recovery hormones and to control cortisol. So a lot of women don't do this quite enough. So just keep this in mind. Again, I'm going to come back to this on a point later, because if you work out super hard, I know some ladies go to the gym like 5 times, 6 times a week, and they're not really resting, and that really impacts their hormone level, and it will cause you to deposit more belly fat and so on and so forth, okay? So you need to ensure you have the rest and recovery to stimulate the parasympathetic system so you can start to rest, okay? And the last thing is you need low intensity, steady state cardio, okay? Now, low intensity steady state cardio is actually meaning you actually are operating at a cardio capacity of 50 to 60% of your, of your cardio capacity. And that means you're not too high that it's going to spike your cortisol, and that you can go a little bit longer. Okay. Now, you don't need to do tons and tons of cardio. You just need some of this, the steady state cardio. And the steady state cardio, it actually will help you tap fat stores, because at that lowered intensity, it's not using glycogen as much, it's using your fat stores. So you actually want some steady state cardio to further tap into those fat stores, because again, you have to lower your fat percentage to see muscles. Okay. So you need to tap into that, but you don't want to do hours and hours of long cardio. I just mean you need some steady state cardio to be able to tap those fat stores. And also steady state cardio at lower intensities help your parasympathetic system. So it actually allows you to calm down and actually start to burn off. So parasympathetic nervous system, it allows you to calm down so your cortisol can drop down. Okay. So guess what? When you train in strength training at the gym, it's not just like I'm going strength training. It's that in that program, you need to have a variety of these different elements within it to optimize the best body composition. Okay. These 4 things I talked about, I can't say for certain that how much you need right now. We will need to see what your body specifically does. So it's better that we talk to you about it. So again, you need resistance training, you need HIIT training, you need proper rest and recovery and mobility work. And rest and recovery, mobility work is clumped together, but mobility is actually something you probably should work almost every day, to be honest. Mobility is actually very important, but rest and recovery is slightly different. And you need to have your steady state cardio with low intensity. Okay. So you need all 4, and how the percentages of what they look like will be different for each person, but it is all about hormone optimization. So here's an example. When I program for someone, I consider their level of stress. When I ask them on a consultation call, and some of you book consultation calls with me, I ask them what's their lifestyle like, how much stress they're under, what's their job like, because there's a lot of things that this person, if they're experiencing high levels of cortisol in their body, they need to lower down the HIIT training. Now, the HIIT training is extremely important, but they need to lower down the HIIT training. So you have to I have to adjust that to a level that makes sense for that person. But sometimes some other people are already so fit, and in fact, they may need to increase parts of that HIIT training, or they love strength training. I know there are some people who love strength training and they don't actually like do much cardio. I've caught a few of my clients like that, actually. And I'm like, no. Okay, wait. Cardio is important. Steady state cardio is important too. Don't throw that out the door. Okay. So this is what I'm trying to explain to you, is that a lot of times people just don't balance their levels of training to a level that is optimal for their hormone. Okay. So if you are watching and you're like, okay, I need better hormone optimization in my training regimen, I want you to put hormone optimization. Okay. Because this is actually, I think, the first thing I said above was very important, but the second thing, hormone optimization, is so underlooked for menopausal women. In fact, I want you to write it down on your sheet right now if you are taking notes. Hormone optimization. Hormone optimization as a menopausal woman, you can't just go do any strength training program, but I'm going to see results. It's not that simple. And you also can't just be like, I like cardio, so I'm just going to do cardio. It's not that simple. And then you hear research that says HIIT training produces excellent body composition. You can't just go, well, I hear HIIT is great, so I'm going to do HIIT, and then now you spike your cortisol. Okay. So having proper hormone optimization is essential. So put hormone optimization below if you know you need better hormone optimization for your strength training. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go to point number 3. So point number 3, that's why I said I was going to cover it, because it was a specific point I made separate. So specifically, prioritizing rest and recovery and mobility work. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about this in point number 3. Okay. So proper rest and recovery and mobility work means, okay, you are going to do a warm up and you are going to do cool downs that focus on joint mobility. This is not done enough by most women. You need to work on warm-ups and cool downs that work joint mobility. As you age and your estrogen drops off, your joint mobility and kind of the cushion around it really drops off significantly. And this is going to be the primary reason why you're probably going to get a potential injury. So, and if you want to lift heavier, you want to bigger on your lifts or just more, you need to ensure that you have really good warm-up, good cool downs, and joint mobility work. Now, all my clients, you guys are given a mobility stretching program for a reason, because I specifically want you to do that every week for sure, to make sure the mobility of your joints are there. Okay. Ensure you are working mobility of your hips, your shoulders, and your ankles. The most common areas of injury are actually shoulders, then hip, then ankles. Okay. So make sure you work on those mobility aspects. So you need to also make sure that you incorporate restorative yoga or stretching sessions into your routine. So mobility work is different than flexibility. Flexibility is stretching your muscles. Mobility work is working your joints. Okay. So you also need to make sure you have restorative yoga and stretching sessions to reduce stiffness. Okay. And then you need to strategically schedule your rest days, just like Dana asked, but it depends on what your routine looks like and how your program is programmed. For example, is your program back and bis, chest and tris, blah, 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 or is it back, bis, tris, blah, blah, blah? Like, is it 3 things together or two body parts together? So that will determine where your rest periods go. Okay. And you need to prioritize quality sleep. So all of you know how important sleep is. And I know as you go into menopause, often people struggle with sleep or they have poor sleep routines. So trying to prioritize sleep is very important. Clarice can improve on this too, but it is actually a very important part to building muscle. If you don't rest enough, you are not going to build muscle. Okay. So there are a number of things I said here. I say you need to have proper warm-up, cool downs for joint mobility. You need to have yoga or stretch sessions every week. You need to prioritize proper rest days, and you need to prioritize proper amount of sleep between 7 to 9, they say. I go with the philosophy that as long as your body feels rested. Not everybody needs a full 9, not everybody needs a full 8, not everybody needs a full 7, but as long as your body feels fully rested. Okay. So if you want to learn more about this proper rest and recovery, I want you to put FWRRP. So I did a live on this probably 2 years ago called the Fierce Woman Rest and Recovery Protocol. Okay. So FWRRP. So I described it briefly here for you, but if you want to watch that live and for us to connect with you a little bit more on that, put FWRRP. Okay. So that's the Fierce Woman Rest and Recovery Protocol. Okay. FWRRP. I honestly think that, there are great trainers, and I have male trainers as well. But one thing I will say is just be careful that if you have a male trainer, they are very aware of the hormones of you as a woman. Because if they're not aware of it, you're in for some problems. Because for them, it's like, oh, if you do this move, you're going to get shredded, because I get shredded like this. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. I know you have a male body and your testosterone is 15 times of our bodies. And plus you don't go through the drop in estrogen. So therefore you have greater anabolic ability than us. So remember, if you have a male trainer, you just have to make sure that they actually understand your body. And I'm very fortunate, obviously, as a coach and trainer, I understand a lot of this stuff that even I love my trainers. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes they'll say something and then I'll ask them and counteract it because I understand enough about hormones to
help them. And then they'll say, oh, like, I mean, like, that's generally good, but yeah, for menopausal women, that's probably not as good, right? But for most men, they're not aware of this. So be very careful when you are maybe training with a male. Ensure, especially if you're not seeing like results over time, you can be stronger, but if you're not like strength and being able to see muscles are two different things. You guys understand this, right? One is strength, and it is about like amount of muscle fibers, which is important too. The other is about size of your muscle fibers, which is hypertrophy training. So strength is not the same. You might be like, I feel stronger though, but I don't see it in my body. Like, what's different in my body? So you want someone who actually will know how to train a menopausal woman and be able to build strength and size of muscle, which is specifically hypertrophy training. Okay. So again, if you first time heard hypertrophy training, then put it below, because that is something I think that more menopausal women need. So a lot of women go to the gym. They're like, I think I'm stronger. I'm like, you are stronger, but it doesn't show on your body. So put hypertrophy training below if you want to learn more specifically about building the size of your muscles. I'm a proponent of strength hypertrophy. Okay. I believe you need to be both strong and build the size of your muscles. But a lot of women just are like, they're able to build a little strength, but they're not able to build the size and the shape and the sculpting of their muscles. That's why I bring this up. Okay. Hypertrophy training. HYPERTROPHY. Hypertrophy training. If you feel you need more of that. All right. Number 4 mistake is not enough focus on quality protein and nutrition. Okay. So you knew this was going to come around, because you can't get away from not building muscle and not having good nutrition, right? So what does this mean is a lot of women actually don't get enough protein. And like, as I look through a lot of women's logs, they might get, like 15, 20 grams of protein, which is not bad, but it's just not going to be enough for their whole day of like what they need in their body. So remember, one thing is that menopausal women need more protein than less because of your lack of ability to absorb protein at this age. So you need actually a higher emphasis on protein. So statistically, there's, basically it says you need 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But remember, this is very general. So you need to, it depends again on your level of lifting. Obviously, higher levels of lifting, heavier volume training, like I said above, like if you do higher amount of volume training, definitely more protein. You have to learn what your daily protein intake needs to be, okay, based on a very set program. So that's why it is better, to be honest, if the person who helps you with your workout also helps you with your nutrition. Otherwise, I do find that hard. Like, I have a couple clients where I only do nutrition, but I don't help them with their workouts. And it's like we're trying to communicate back and forth, like, hey, show me what you do. Can you film a little bit of your workout? Because without me knowing how you train, how your workouts, I can't make some proper decisions on like how much protein you need to have. Because again, someone tells me, well, I did 4 sets of squats and I did 15 reps of each one. That means something totally different from someone who did 4 sets of squats with 185 pounds on that bar versus you holding 2 20-pound dumbbells. Think about this really carefully. That's radically different, right? So I like, it is the best if your person who helps you with workouts can also help you with nutrition and proper amounts of protein. Quality protein means quality, good grade protein, not cheap protein, not some sort of thing added with all types of fillers and additives and things like that, right? So high quality proteins are things like meats, eggs, dairy, actually not dairy, meats, eggs, and legumes. And so you want to have like more natural meats and fishes and things like that. And legumes, because some of them have protein in it too, okay? Now, the things I need you to consider is when you are evaluating whether something is a quality protein or not, you need to think about these things. Number one, what anti-inflammatory compounds are involved, or what inflammatory compounds are involved. So what do I mean by that is, does this protein improve my anti-inflammation response in my body, like lowers my inflammation, or does it increase my inflammation in my body? So you need to look at, does this food cause inflammation? Does this particular protein cause more inflammation or less inflammation in my body? Okay, so that's one thing you need to consider, inflammation or inflammation markers. Does this food or protein spike my insulin? Okay, because as you are aging, your insulin response really drops off with age. This means your body cannot take in like the glucose as well, and this turns into more higher blood sugar, potentially pre-diabetes, potentially belly fat. Okay, so you have to really consider, does this protein I'm intaking cause any insulin spike? And I can't remember, obviously, the specific example, but I remember talking to a few of my clients where I said, yeah, so when does a protein need sugar in it? And they're like, oh, I don't know, but this has a little bit in it. And it's like, well, does protein need sugar in it? No. So why does your protein have sugar in it? You know, so you need to consider these things. Like, does it have inflammation markers? Does it cause insulin spike? What is the bioavailability of that protein? So what I mean by that is, how well does your body absorb protein from that source? It's called bioavailability. How well does your body absorb protein from that source? Okay, so there are different types of protein where you can absorb better and other proteins where you don't absorb as well. And so you have to start to look at the bioavailability of that protein for your body. And because we're talking about nutrition generally, is for your muscle building, do you have proper supplementation involved? Now, I'm not going to get into lots of supplementation today, but proper supplementation can be, there is a little bit around creatine. Creatine is actually one of the most studied compounds, you know, in the fitness community. But I will say one thing is being very careful where you obtain those creatine sources, because of a lot of things I said above, like inflammation markers, what does it have in it, all those types of things. And not everyone necessarily has to have it, although it is actually, research has shown that menopausal women do tend to potentially benefit more from this because of the way it works with the body, as well as proper vitamins and minerals, which today I'm not going to get into it. But if you want to learn more about muscle building nutrition, I want you to put muscle building nutrition below. Okay, muscle building nutrition below. So just quickly there, I want people to put below not just muscle building nutrition, but I want you to put below something I said that you're like, oh, I never thought about, maybe I need to be careful about it. Put below if you feel like maybe you're not sure about inflammation markers in the food or the protein you take. Or put below like insulin or sugar if you never considered like the insulin response. Or put bioavailability if you never considered the bioavailability of that protein or those nutrition compounds to your body. Or supplementation if you never considered how supplementation can help you maximize muscle growth. Okay. All right. So the next thing is you need to incorporate power and speed training. So this is the fifth mistake is not incorporating power and speed training. Let me ask all of you who are on here, how many of you actually incorporate power and speed training? Put it below. How many of you incorporate power and speed training? A lot of women actually don't really train power and speed. And as you age over the age of 50, you really lose your fast twitch fiber muscles very quickly. Okay, this is why as you age, you move a bit slower, you're just slower, you're not as fast, you're not as like quick and agile. And it's because people actually don't train it. They don't train their power and speed training. Okay. And so this is actually important, very, very important for menopausal women. You need at least 2 to 3 sets of explosive exercises 1 to 2 times per week. Now, I want you to remember what I said above, okay? So there is the kind of fierce woman training protocol I talked about above with the different elements, okay? So if you're taking notes, you're like, wow, there's so many things she's speaking about. I need to like review and write notes. Yes, there's a lot I'm putting into this. But I have to also say, if you're taking notes, just to take notes, just so that you can go back and try to figure this out, it's very confusing. In order to know how to separate all the elements properly in your training, you need to be on a training protocol and on a training program that considers these things. By yourself to put it all together, you're going to potentially mix it up, right? And potentially do it in the wrong way. So why do I say this? Because above, I spoke about the aspect of proper resistance training. I spoke about your HIIT training. I spoke about your mobility, stretching, rest, and recovery. I spoke about your steady state, low intensity cardio. And now I'm talking about speed and power. Okay. When you consider how many things are actually really needed in your workout, there's a lot. And it's not that you need to separate all of those out. It's that in your workout, it needs to happen within that workout. And that's where having coaching and training is really important to work fast twitch muscle fibers. Now, this is just an example, but it's not what you have to do because I wouldn't expect most of you to do Olympic lifting. The reason why I got into Olympic lifting is because I did bodybuilding for over 10 years. And in bodybuilding, this type of training we're talking about is a little bit typically slow and controlled, which I will talk about technique later. So, and by the way, if you're enjoying this, please put enjoy or tag someone on it because I want more people to see this. And think of someone, just tag them. I don't care. Just tag them on it. Okay. Because more people see it, the better. And let me know you enjoy it. So, but like as an example is I just felt like the speed and the power was like, I'm not really getting more of that. Or, you start to feel like you lose it because you can get so used to bodybuilding stuff. And so for me, it was like kind of I wanted to like go for some power and speed. And that's definitely 100% a huge change for my body, which I love because it's like you don't normally train like that in bodybuilding. Olympic lifting is about power and speed, which forced my body to change a little bit of the different muscle twitch fibers, which is excellent because the more well-rounded you can become, the more well-rounded of an athlete you are, right? So I'm not saying you have to do Olympic lifting, okay? But you need to incorporate more explosive type things. And that's why I'll give you an example, but you need to specifically talk to us or put like explosive training below if you want more help or fast twitch fiber help, because it's not appropriate for everyone depending on your mobility and previous injury. But like box jumps are awesome explosions, but not everybody can do them. So you actually have to get more specific ideas on what that looks like to create more explosive power. Not everyone can do Olympic lifting. So definitely, if you're like, I need some more help with power and speed, then put power and speed or fast twitch help, okay? So don't underestimate this specific type of training, power and speed, because it is the move that will actually help you like be not the 70-year-old or 80-year-old that moves really slow, okay? A lot of times you see older people move very slow because they've lost their fast twitch fibers. So it is so important to train this. Now we're going to go on to number 6 mistake. And number 6 and 7 are connected, okay? And then number 8 and 9 are connected. But we're going to go to number 6. Number 6 mistake: improper form and technique in lifting. Improper form and technique in lifting. So we're going to dive into this, okay? So I see it often, okay? And that's why in my MA class, actually, I talked about my muscle accelerator. I want to do one in December for them that is on lifting technique, because it's very common for people to kind of go off on this a little bit, like kind of get off their technique a little bit. So one of the things is angles of your joint, okay? Your angles of your joint absolutely will affect your total result of your muscles and how defined your muscles will be. I'm going to give you a simple example. Shoulder raises or lateral raises, okay? It's kind of like move a little bit for you, okay? But if your wrist position, actually I can do it this way, sorry, I'm moving around. If your wrist is in this position, you're out on the lateral raise. If it's in this position, it's great. But it's that small of a minute detail that affects whether you have better lateral development than not. And when you actually are lifting, what is the position? Again, I have to shift all over the place. But like when you're lifting, like, are you actually going to be like here or here? I see some people lift like this, right? I'm hoping that makes sense. I'm trying to move around here. But it affects you because like you're not actually hitting the belly of the muscle when your joints are off position from each other, right? So this is kind of why angles of your joints are very, very important and relative to each other. So for example, in your squats, in your lunges, what is the position of your hip to your ankle and things like that matters, right? Because a shift from the hip to the ankle will shift which muscle you work on. So angles of your joints is extremely important. And this is why for Muscle Accelerator, for those of you who send me form checks, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Debbie Bowman. So proud of her right now. She's been sending me form checks. It's so important because I need to see the way you do the workout and watch your video on like, where is the position of what you do? Common mistake, and people can go forever to the gym and never see their shoulders defined, okay? So second thing, another improper form is not proper isolation, okay? So the key to really great muscle development is proper isolation with minimal compensation. So what do I mean by this? You have to be able to isolate that muscle line you're trying to work without compensating with other muscles as much as you can. Now, why do I say as much as you can? Is because, well, your whole body works together. It's one unit, okay? So it still will try to bring in other muscles. It's going to happen a little bit. But to the degree you can isolate with minimal compensation is the degree you produce quality muscles, okay? So this is extremely important because a lot of people don't isolate properly. So here's an example. Bulgarian split squats. When you go down to Bulgarian split squats, if you go down, one leg on the bench, you go down and you lean over in your upper body as you go down too much. And then you come back up on the Bulgarian split squat and you keep doing this. So imagine this is your upper body going down and then coming back up, going down and coming back up. This is not isolating into your glutes, right? And Bulgarian split squats are amazing for glutes. But when you do this, this is your upper body. What are you doing? You're using your upper body. So you're actually not isolating into the legs to produce the muscles of your leg. So a lot of individuals don't actually properly isolate their body to really develop the line for themselves. And you know what? And one thing I'll say is I can think of a few people actually on this call that you may have a giftedness in an area. Like, for example, you may just have amazing shoulders like 𝐁𝐢𝐠𝐿𝐿. Like 𝐁𝐁𝐢𝐠𝐿𝐿 just is born with amazing shoulders, but she's worked hard to develop other parts of her body. But the thing is, sometimes you don't even realize because you're like, oh, I'm doing the move right. Yeah. Because you already look good in that muscle. So you don't even know that you actually are not really growing it. It's just like, you just kind of you're just going off of what you naturally are good at. So an example is, since we're on the topic of Bulgarian split squats, there are some people who just deposit more fat on their butt and they have a little bit more better shape on their butt. But it ain't meaning that you're doing your Bulgarian split squat properly, right? You might just have a better looking glute range, glute shape, but your technique is not great. And how I will know is if you actually entered a bodybuilding competition and all your fat is off your body. That is the greatest test of how good your muscles actually look, because you cannot hide it anymore. Yeah. So it's proper isolation is the key with minimal compensation. Okay. The third thing about improper form is speed. Okay. Speed is a very, very, the biggest thing that takes away your game. Okay. I forget. Oh yes. Jennifer. She's not on here right now. I call her Speedy Gonzalez. Speedy Gonzalez. Hey, slow down, Speedy Gonzalez. You know, when she sends me her video. So she's going through her Bulgarian split squats like this. First of all, if it's that fast, it's probably not heavy enough. Chest press fast, you know, like, no, you got to slow down, but it's not all slow either. Did you hear that? Okay, so everybody's like, yeah, I train slow. I know you're not supposed to go fast. Good. But if you go too slow, then you ain't training your fast twitch muscle fibers either. So you actually have to have the right timing for where you will hold, for where you go faster and where you will go slower. So depending on the type of training you want to do. Now, this would be a higher level technique. I wouldn't even talk about this in the beginning of an MA. Like if someone just started MA with me, it wouldn't even be at the beginning. It would be a little bit more further in, because I want to make sure they do their form correctly first, and then we'll work on speed. But speed changes a lot of things. Whether you go like eccentric, concentric, so where you release the muscles, where it's faster, where it's slower, and where the holds are, is the hold at the bottom or at the top of the move. Those all changes. It's called tempo training, right? But tempo training is not just about, oh, I heard tempo training, so that's important, so I go slow. No. Tempo training is about varying your speeds for different types of effect in your body. Sometimes you need to go faster in this part, and sometimes you need to go slower in this part to produce the most effective ability to build that muscle. Okay. So tempo is very important. Exactly. And one more thing, and then I'm going to ask all of you to reflect on your workout. Okay. All 24 eyeballs. And I want you to tell me, I'm going to go back through all the improper forms, and I want you to tell me which one you think you potentially have problems with. Okay. The last thing I'm going to talk about here with improper form is depth. So for a lot of people, they just don't push their depth to what they should. So now, obviously I understand there's limitations or injuries, so I'm not talking about that. But for a lot of women, they don't squat all the way down. Maybe they can't, or maybe they just never did it before. They just never trained it. Because I actually have trained multiple of my ladies to go much lower on their squats because they only used to squat only up to a certain point. And it was just training that they needed, right? They don't hit the full depth. Now, I'm not just talking about squats, because right away, I'm guaranteeing in this crowd, there's going to be people like, but I can't. I had knee surgery and I had hip surgery. It's okay. I'm not just talking about squats. I'm talking about even chest press. When you do your chest press, are you going to hear, or you're going to hear changes absolutely the development of your line. And so this is very important because a lot of women don't go full range and full depth. But there's also something called hypermobility. You don't want to go so far that then it's also ineffective. But you need to make sure that you stretch the muscle to its almost maximal capability so that you can actually develop the muscle belly the fullest. We call it muscle belly, okay? The better you can build the muscle belly, the more rounded the shapes of your muscle will become. Muscle belly development, okay? Muscle belly development. And did you know that menopausal women have the fastest drop of muscle from their legs? Not their upper body, their legs. Your legs are the fastest drop off your body. So super, super, super important. And I tell my parents this, you need to work your leg muscles, okay? So for example, in rows, sometimes I see people kind of not go fully into their back. You know, the extension into the back is very important. So the depth and fullness of your muscle, okay? I think of like just pulling that out, okay? I said all of this quite fast, but I want now all of you to tell me and think very carefully about your own training in lifting, okay? The improper forms and techniques I have seen in people are these, and I want you to tell me which one you think is you, or maybe a few of these. Improper angles, okay? Is it improper angles? You're not sure about the way the joints or like hips or ankle, okay? Improper isolation, improper timing, or improper depth. Which one? Again, improper angles, improper isolation, improper timing, or improper depth. Which one? Put it below. So what I'm talking about here technique-wise has more to do with the sculpting. If you don't see the muscles you want, which a lot of you said above you don't see, it's like you're missing these elements. You're missing these technical pointers that bodybuilders just have gotten really good at, who really know how to angle their bodies. There's different types of lateral raises based on how the position of your wrist is to your shoulder, in what level it is, and what angle it actually is turning as well. So it's like we get really good at that stuff. We get very good at knowing where to isolate. We get very good at tempo training and types of tempo training, and we get very good at knowing where to go for our depths. So if you're watching and you're like, I don't know, actually, I'm just confused, and you want to learn more about technique of lifting, I want you to put technique of lifting below, okay? Because technique is everything for your results. If you go to the gym and just work out, just to work out, you are going to be that person that goes to the gym day after day, week after week, month after month, and you look the same year after year, year after year, year after year. And I remember one of my previous clients, her name is Pam. I actually reposted something of hers like a month ago. And she was going to this gym for like 10, 15 years. And the big dude walked up to her when she was training my program. And he's like, I see changes in your body. He's like, you've been coming here a long time, and I finally see changes in your body. And Pam told me, and I'm like, well, I told you, you can go to a gym for a long time and nothing changes in your body until you do the right stuff properly. Okay. So put technique of lifting if you want more help with technique. Okay. We're going to do number seven. So it is connected with technique, but it's a little bit of a different angle. So that's why I put it for number 7, is proper mind-body connection. So I do talk about this a lot in some of my previous lives in my first 2 years. It was actually called the DNA methodology of training and lifting. In the D, it was part of the D. Okay, your mind-body connection is you being able to use your mind to have a mental connection to the move. This is actually extremely important, that when you're lifting, you really fully engage your mind muscle contraction. You're very aware exactly what muscle you're working for, what purpose, and where it is. This is extremely important because your neural connections actually influence motor recruitment. Your muscles are dependent on motor recruitment that is attached to your muscles. The more motor recruitments you can get in that move, which means more neural connections, the better your muscle development will be. So being able to actually like mentally connect your moves is really important. And in fact, they did a study. One of my original bodybuilding coach actually used to train some guys in terms of this. And he was, because some of them had injuries, and he was able to use slightly less weight with these people who had injuries, but created massive neural connections and mind-body connections that resulted in almost the same results of that person lifting as someone else who was lifting like 20, 30 pounds heavier of the same weight, because they created better neural connections. Okay. So mind-body connection is very important. So you have to learn to slow down the reps and think about which muscle you're recruiting. And you actually need to try. Okay. So think about this. Okay. Visualize the muscle as you train it. This actually will help you build better muscle. So that's why people who actually do understand the anatomy of the body, who actually understand, okay, the lat muscle needs to look like this. Like 𝐿𝐿 knows that I used to draw it out for her when we were training for bodybuilding competition. And I just did it for Pam Dennis, different from the other Pam. Pam is very, like, she goes hard in the gym and she's starting to build lots of muscles. And I was just telling her, okay, in order for you to pop this muscle more, I'm drawing for her the shoulder line to the bicep line, and then the rear delt to the lat muscles, to the rhomboid muscles, and all of that. So the better you can visualize the anatomy, the more neural connections you can pull into to that specific move. Okay. So how many of you, if I ask you, do you actually fully slow down and visualize and make mind-body connection? So put mind-body connection yes or mind-body connection no. Okay, so this is a check-in for you. When you lift, do you lift mindlessly? You're like, oh, I just got to get this workout done. I get it. Some days might be like that for everybody. But are you really focusing? When you do a squat, when you do a deadlift, when you do like your Bulgarians, when you do your flies, when you do your rear delt flies, when you do like specific like face pulls, you know, all this type of stuff, are you thinking which muscle are you working? In the DNA methodology that I originally taught in my first 2 years in this community, it was called the DNA methodology. And the D stood for do it right, do it hard, and do it in your mind. Okay. So do it right, do it hard, and do it in your mind is like the keys to really building the fierce, strong muscles. So if you want to learn more about our DNA methodology, put DNA below so that we can reach out to you on that. We are now on number 8 and 9. And if you're learning something new in this live, I want you to say learning lots below, so that I know that you're learning. If you're enjoying and learning, like you're like, hey, I like actually really enjoy this live, like I'm learning lots of things I never thought about, put learning below. Okay. Now I had to put this together because I was writing it and I'm like, wait, they kind of relate to each other, but they're point 8 and 9. Okay. So your mistake, or most ladies' mistake for people who don't see results, is you're not lifting heavy enough, and the connected point is you're not sticking to the same program for long enough. And I'm going to explain to you why I have to put this together, because they're kind of connected to each other. Okay. So you're not lifting probably heavy enough, and you're not sticking to the same program for long enough. Okay. Without switching it. So the thing is, you actually have to have proper form before you can lift heavy. Okay. That's why point number 7, 6 and 7 was about proper form. Because yes, you are absolutely going to hurt yourself if you don't have proper form. So please ensure you have proper form first, proper angles, proper depth, proper, all the things I talked about above before going to the point 8 and 9. However, I find a lot of people like jump to trying to lift heavy without proper form, and then they get injured, right? And so I think that you need to go proper form, but then people often then stop as well. So they have proper form and then they get good at a move, including my own clients. So some of you, I'm calling you out because I will come and see, I'm like, hey, why are you still lifting at this weight? Wait a second, you know, I think you can lift more, you know, is you get good at a move and then you start like, oh, it's not so bad. It was so hard at the beginning, but now it's not bad, Clarice, now. And then you're used to it and then you stop actually progressing yourself and lifting heavier. Okay. So examples are, I'm going to give you examples because I speak from real experience of actually coaching my clients. A lot of my clients with chest presses, they start and they're like, hey, I can do good, like 20 pounds and 25. And then, you know, maybe I'm like, okay, so time to challenge yourself a little bit. Okay, so let's push it to 30 pounds in each arm. Okay, 30 pounds in each arm. And then they're like, okay, it's a little bit heavier to do 30 in each arm. And then they stop there because they're like, oh, I already started lifting heavier. It's like, no, why can't you do 35 in each arm? Well, after you can do 35, why are you not lifting 40 in each arm? Why are you not progressing it to the next level? So I find it's one or the other. Okay. Either they're like, Clarice said I need to lift heavy, so I'm going to go lift heavy. So they jump to it, but they didn't fix their form and now they're injured. Okay. So I'm not saying that. Please don't do that. or they're the opposite. It's like they you know, they do their weights, they get better at it, and they challenge themselves a little bit, and then they don't go anymore. Same with Bulgarians. I'm calling out some of my clients. So you're like, oh, Bulgarians are so hard. And okay, I'm going to hold 20 pounds in each hand, 25. And then Clarice comes and says, no, you should probably hold 30 in each hand, or 35. Well, 𝐭𝐲𝐻𝐿 will laugh at this one. And then you go lift 30 and 35 pounds. And then what? Most people stop. Is that right? Let me ask most of you. Be honest. A lot of you stop at around 30, 35. Why? Let me tell you something. Most people are good at pushing themselves a little bit. Most people are not good at pushing themselves maximally. That is extremely hard because you have to be able to take on a high level of potential pain tolerance. Okay? So I have to be careful about this because I'm not saying go hurt yourself. Okay? Please take this in context and with a grain of salt. And it's not that you have to always lift so heavy maximally that you will kill yourself either. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to point out is a common mistake I see for a lot of women, including 𝐭𝐲𝐻𝐿. When she did walking lunges, she was happy to stick with 30 pounds. Is that correct, 𝐭𝐲𝐻𝐿? She was happy to stick with 30 pounds, but I said, no, you don't stick to 30 pounds for those walking lunges. Yeah, she had to do 50 pounds. She could easily do 50 pounds. This girl can do 50 pounds, but she didn't want to. She could do 50 pounds with walking lunges. I can do 50. I could do 55. I could hold 2 60s in my hand. But why do we not do this? Because we always choose the path of least resistance. We typically will go, okay, we'll push ourselves a little, but I'm not going to push myself so much. No, I'm just not going to. But why? Because you're probably like, because I'm going to get injured, right? I know what you're thinking. It's not always true though. That's why you need to first learn form. You need to slowly work up to it. And do you know what I said earlier? This is connected with the second point. You have to stick to a program long enough. This is the biggest thing. It's connected. This is why it's connected. Because I don't expect that you're going to go from Bulgarian split squats with 15 pounds in each hand to 45 or 50 pounds in each hand like that. I don't expect that. That is where you will get injured. But you must work at it progressively over time to give yourself enough time to be able to do what you do. You know, people may look at maybe myself or 𝐭𝐲𝐻𝐿 is very strong, but it's only because we've worked at it for many, many years. We worked it up. You know, I can do, you spot it though, chest presses with 60 in each hand, with 60 pounds in each hand. Do I expect that you can do that right now? No. But why can I do that? Because I slowly worked it up and I kept doing it. So remember, the second point is doing the program long enough. A lot of people go, okay, I worked this program for 3 months, 4 months. Okay, what's next? What's my next program? What's my next program? Okay, what else can I do? Oh, let's go to YouTube and find a different program. So what I see is like not enough people truly put in the work to become like expert lifters to lift more, heavier, with proper progression, with proper form. Because if you can do this, you will be able to like surprise yourself. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I can like chest press this much. Oh my goodness, like 𝐭𝐲𝐻𝐿 deadlifts. She couldn't hold a certain amount of deadlifts. I forget for at the beginning how much you couldn't do, but she kept dropping it and she was mad at me. She was like, why are you making me lift this? I can't hold this long. I'm like, because you're going to train it to lift it heavier, you know? And most people just go either like, oh, it's too heavy. I'm just going to back down to my smaller weights. And they're not going to go through the discomfort for longer to get there, or they switch a program. How many of you have been like, oh, I'm bored, next program. I'm bored, next program. I'm bored, next program. Do you know how many years I've trained Bulgarian split squats, ladies? Right? So I've trained Bulgarian split squats for literally, I think 12 years. Is it 12 years? No, no. 13 years. 13 years. Bulgarian split squats for 13 years. Yeah. 17 years. Oh wow, Shoni. No, not 17. It would be 13 years. 13 years. But like I'm working at that like consistently. I've been working chest presses for like around the same time, 13, 14 years, right? So yeah, guys, like sometimes I feel like we are in a generation where there's so much information and anything you can go to YouTube, you can find any workout. There's so many variations. And I think Bruce Lee says this, I fear not the person who practices 1,000 different kicks. I fear the person who practices one kick 1,000 times. This is from Bruce Lee. And when you can get super good at your lifts, wow, you are going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you do need to vary it, but in general, I just find a lot of women don't stick long enough to things and then don't allow themselves to progress. On average, what I see as a coach is that somebody will get like about 5 pounds to 10 pounds past their comfort zone, and then they typically stop. So for example, if they start at 20 pounds of Bulgarian split squats and I challenge them to go higher, they'll go higher to 25 or max 30. They usually won't push themselves to 35 or 40. But what if I challenge you that everyone listening right now, what if you could actually progress your lifts by 40 to 50 pounds heavier in each hand, right? Some of you are like, what? That's incomprehensible. No, it's not incomprehensible. It is possible. You just need to be training consistently at it over and over again. What I will say is in order to do this properly, right? Proper training to train long enough and lifting heavy enough for long enough, okay? You really need to have proper programming and probably good coaching, because if you don't know how to do right form, you ain't going to go heavier in the right way. And the heavier you go, the more likely your body will compensate for sure. That's why I say I have to be careful, because don't take this out of context. Don't run and just grab a heavy weight right now. Don't go from what you're doing and jump 15 pounds up. You're going to hurt yourself, right? But you need proper progression. You need proper programming. You need to have a coach who actually understands this, who has done it themselves. Okay, very important. Please make sure that a coach who trains you do it themselves, because a lot of people can talk a big talk, but they don't train that way. Make sure it's a coach who themselves have challenged themselves to go heavier, has progressed themselves, has lifted and pushed their envelope more than before. Otherwise, they absolutely cannot take you further than where they have gone themselves. If they are someone who just has a personal training certificate or done some training in the gym, it's okay. However, if they haven't pushed the envelope on like, okay, they made themselves go from here to lift this amount of weight or all of that, you need to find someone who actually has done that, because they understand the pain. They understand the mentality, where you want to give up, where your compensations will happen. That only comes through experience, is someone who actually has done it. And that's why I will know when you start to pick up a heavier weight on lunges, you for sure will compensate. But where will you compensate? And how will you fix it? When you start to do pull-ups, there's going to be really common compensations that happen in pull-ups that prevent you from developing your back. But only if somebody has done it themselves. Does that make sense? It has to be someone who has done it before, who has traveled the path, and who can help you understand how to get through those really tough moments. How do I know that Oshone could not lift those deadlifts back when I trained her, but I knew that she could do it eventually if she trained the right way? Is because I did it. I used to not be able to get my chest to the floor for push-ups. Now I can do tons and tons and tons of push-ups from the floor, chest to the floor. Why? Because I trained myself through it. So a lot of ladies at the beginning are like, you want my chest to touch the floor? Absolutely. I want your chest to touch the floor, unless you have a mobility issue. But they're like, but I thought you're not supposed to. No, you can, unless you have a mobility issue. And that's why it needs to be someone who has trained the amount of push, like they've gone further, and they haven't just looked at a textbook. Because look, I'll tell you this. A textbook says, go to 90 degrees on your push-up and back up. go to your chest press at 90 degrees and back up. Why? Because they want to keep you on a safe zone. But there's actually more beyond that if you really understand. So if you want to push the envelope of your training, is to make sure. So with that being said, I want you to put programming or coaching below. If you feel like for you need a little bit more guidance on the program, I want you to put programming below. Okay, so number 10 is thinking you need to be motivated. Okay, so I was reading a lot of comments on my post yesterday with my pike hold, and a lot of people had said, oh, like, I'm just not motivated. It's hard to be motivated, to stay motivated. Okay, so I really want to talk a little bit about this. Okay, this is the number 10 error because of the mindset. Okay, so thinking you need to be motivated is a lie, and thinking you absolutely need discipline is a lie. I'm just going to stop right there so everybody stops and thinks about it. Thinking you need to be motivated is a lie, and thinking you need to be disciplined is a lie. Okay, so you're like, what? Okay, motivation maybe, but discipline? Wait, what is she talking about? Okay, so before you freak out, we're going to explain this. Okay, first of all, motivation is a lie because motivation is fleeting. You and I know. It is like food. You eat it and it goes out your system. Okay, so motivation, you eat some motivation juice or motivation video, or you hear Clarice speak, or you do a 14-day challenge and you become motivated. It is very temporary. So depending on motivation, you will forever always struggle with reaching your goals because you are not always going to be motivated, right? But then the opposite is true. Discipline is a lie as well. So what do I mean by that? So discipline is when, and I take it from this standpoint, okay? Yes, discipline is important. However, from the standpoint that I just have to be disciplined, is technically willpower, right? Like you're like, I just need to be disciplined. I need to be more disciplined. And why are both very dangerous is because they're both very much relying on emotions. And emotions are good indicators, but poor dictators. They're good indication of things happening, but they are very bad at regulating your life. If you're run by your emotions, you will have a very, very troublesome life if you are always run by all your emotions, okay? Motivation and discipline are problematic because they run on basically how you feel, okay? So what I want to talk about is for everyone who commented motivation or lack of discipline or things like that on that post, the key is absolutely something I speak about all the time. And yes, I'm about to repeat it. The key is structure, systems, and accountability. It is not about motivation. It is not even about willpower, discipline, okay? It is about putting in place proper systems, proper structure, and accountability to make sure those pillars are your guardrails and they stabilize you. Because emotions will do this all the time. I'm motivated, I'm not motivated. Sometimes I have discipline, sometimes I don't. Can I ask how many of you on here are listening are sometimes struggle with motivation or discipline? So put struggle motivation or struggle discipline. Okay? Struggle motivation or struggle discipline, put it below because this is very common and you will always not be consistent. And guess what? Number 9, I said before, is you must be willing to do something long enough and be consistent enough, long enough to really see muscle growth, okay? So if you are going up and down with no structure, systems, or accountability, it will go all over the place and you're not going to see results, okay? So this is going to be a big downfall for a lot of people because they base it on this. So instead of saying motivation, instead of saying discipline, I need you to say, I need structure, systems, and accountability. In fact, if you're listening, I want you to put that. Put, I need structure, systems, and accountability. Put it below because this is the truth of the most successful people. The most successful people do not depend on motivation. We do not depend on discipline because if you depend on discipline, you will definitely kick yourself a lot. You're like, oh, I need to be more disciplined. I'm so disappointed in myself. I'm supposed to be disciplined. You're going to be kicking yourself a lot. No, what you need is structure, systems, and accountability. So I want you to put that below. I need structure, systems, and accountability that keep me on track, that helps me have continual support and accountability and like a community, a lot of things together. Okay, so put that below if you're like, yeah, you know what? I always struggle with motivation. I always struggle with consistency. I always struggle with like, I need to be more disciplined. If you ever caught yourself saying that, you can stop saying that. Say, I need structure, systems, and accountability. That's what you need. Okay. So that is number 10. Is the last bonus, number 11, is mindset of like all or nothing. Okay. So I find a lot of ladies are like, I'm all or nothing. Like either I do it or I don't do it. If I can't go to the gym and do my full workout, I won't do it. Or they're like, so I have to address this because I heard this last week 3 times. Okay. I'm going to address it. Well, the holidays are here, so I'm just going to wait till January just because, the holidays are here and, I'm going to be busy. Or there's just so much happening. I'm going to wait till January or February. And that holiday myth is crazy because I want you to think about this. So do you mean in the next 6 weeks, you're not going to work out? You're not going to try to eat good? You're not going to try to stay on track to health? Because to me, when someone says, I'm just going to wait till January, February, you're waiting to be healthy, which does not make sense to me. It's like, no. I know you may not be able to do 100% right now, but you can start now. You can still go to the gym. You can still eat healthy. You can still start focusing. Even if you are working out 60%, you're still 60% further, right? So I call this the mindset trap of like all or nothing, procrastination, and the holiday myth. How many of you are on the holiday myth? Like you guys like, oh, I just wait till January. I'll wait till January. I'll wait till January to start. I'll wait till February. So if you are an all or nothing mindset person or a procrastinator or like holidays myth excuse, I want you to put mindset below. Okay. I want you to put mindset below because you might need to really work on that mindset a bit. Okay. That is 11 points I've gone through. I went through quite a lot of detailed things on why you do not see the muscle gains that you want. And I'm glad that you guys found lots of value in this. A shout out to all 9 new ladies in the 𝐻𝐈𝐒𝐓 system. Super proud of you for choosing yourself, not waiting for the January, February to come. And yeah, I hope you guys love this and you learned a lot. And sending you guys all lots of hearts.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.